Finish him.
We're about to take it back.
Okay. Talking Loud podcast. It's always Diesel Dog. It's gotta be Diesel Dog. And guys, we're back for another episode, and we got a special guest with us today because today is a very special episode, and I know a lot of you guys love growing organically. Tons of people say the flower just tastes better, but we got on today my homie Heston, Mr. FloroFarm himself, winner of the Autoflower Cup 2021. What's going on, Heston?
Hey, man. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Hell yeah, man. Most definitely, dude. I'm stoked to have you on. Thanks for taking the time to come and kick it with us, man. I really appreciate that, dude. Guys, definitely follow him on IG. He's got a banging following. He's got a lot of great stuff that he's actually posting on there. And if you guys love growing organically, he does a lot of organic style growing. So definitely check him out, man. Show him some love and let him know the ICANN fam is over there showing some love and support, man. But, you know, before we actually get into all that, Heston, just tell me what's going on, man. How are things going where you're kicking it at?
Hey, going good, man. Seasons are changing. We have a pretty dramatic wet and dry season here on the coast, and it just, like somebody turned the faucet on. So it finally started raining on us, and it's nice. But yeah, outdoor season is very short-lived here where I am on the coast. So it's pretty much limits me to Autoflowers outside unless I want to pull tarp, and I two young ones that don't really have time to pull tarp. So yeah, it's
I can
it's
imagine
nice.
that, dude. So do you grow those autos fully year round, man?
Yeah, so I do. I generally start auto seeds the same time. Primarily the last few years, I've been growing photo periods from seed, and I just got in the habit of when I start photo period seeds, I'll start basically an equal amount of autoflower seeds, and by the time my photo periods are at the end of their veg period and ready to flower, that's basically harvest time for the autos. So and autos have a bad rap. I think that was, from, years ago, people had a bad first experience. I had, Lowrider years ago was my first autoflower, and it was a very, disappointing harvest. And it was the early years of autoflowers, and people don't really understand how far they've come. And not necessarily, I don't want to have the auto versus photo debate. I think it's comparing apples and oranges. I think that the autoflowers are definitely here to stay. They're getting better every year, and there's definitely a place for them in everyone's garden. Even if you're a photo period grower, like I was saying, just that starting them at the same time as your photos, and for no extra effort, you're going to give them a little water. They're very light feeders, so it's not going to take a bunch of extra time and money and effort to have a little crop at the end of veg, basically. So I think they're, soaking up spots under the canopy, lights getting through the floor in bigger rooms, like shotgunning autoflowers out on the floor for literally no extra cost at that point. And so I think they're a tool, and they should be looked at like something that isn't maybe necessarily going to be your primary. And I don't want to say that, I guess. Yeah. A lot of people strictly grow autos and have great success. Right. Yeah. But if you're a photo period, don't look at an autoflower like someone's trying to, win you over to the dark side, or just like it doesn't have to be either or. It doesn't have to be your favorite. They're a tool in your tool belt, and it is. I like that. A grower, you just utilize all the tools at your disposal for the best possible outcome. And
hell yeah. That's well said, man. You started off this show on a banging note, man. Thanks for that, dude. Guys, that's definitely what's up. And shout out to everyone in the chat right now. We got almost 100 people already. Like, guys, smash that like button, show some love. Let's see what's going on. Thank you to Norma G for dropping on FloroFarm's Instagram as well. Much love for that, guys. Like I said, definitely check him out on Instagram. He's got a lot of great stuff going on, and I can't wait to touch on some of these things that he's definitely got going on. A lot of great stuff. But before we actually do, man, I just want to shout out everyone in the chat. And on top of that, we got a shout shout out the ICANN VIP Bean Club, man. The Bean Club is popping. If you guys want some of that fire, definitely join up with the ICANN VIP Bean Club. We got tons of new genetics going out to all growers outside, all everywhere in the US, man. So definitely join up. And if you guys want to cop some fire genetics as well, then definitely not fire genetics, my bad. Some of that fire Diesel Dog clothing. Then definitely cop some of that Diesel Dog clothing. Show some love. We got some ICANN fan merch on there, man. But before I actually get into all that, man, Heston, I just want to ask you one thing that I ask everyone that comes on to the show. It's almost like a ritual, dude, and it's about their name. So everyone that comes on to the show has a very interesting name, and I just wanted to find out, what's the inspiration behind your name, FloroFarm? It's a really cool name, man.
No, hey, I appreciate that. It was actually my sister came up with that. We we came to Oregon a few years ago to grow in the OLCC in the recreational market.
Got you.
Had a sister moved up from Texas and a brother moved up from Florida.
Yeah.
And we're all passionate about the plant over the years, and we kind of came back together and start this bootstrap farm. And we wanted to really bring a small batch craft product that was like for everybody, and in that idea of like everybody, kind of a failed language that was a new language was being formed. I think it was Etruscan, that was kind of a start from scratch, and everyone learned this language. And floro is Etruscan for flower, so that was like kind of the flower for everybody, the organic flower that everybody can relate to, and it's accessible for everyone. So that's my sister's.
I like that, man.
I like that, yeah.
That's pretty cool because, like I say, everyone has this, either super inspirational or really quirky story, man. So I was just really interested to find out, what was the inspiration behind that. So props to you for bringing that out, man. And another thing I like to ask is, you've been gardening seems for like quite some time, and you've been growing some beautiful flowers, like amazing plants. Like I keep saying, guys, check out his IG. Is testament to that. But what actually got you into gardening? What made you say, okay, I want to go with growing my own herb rather than buying it from the shady guy or the dispo?
Yeah, no, for sure. That was exactly the inspiration. Originally was small, rural, very conservative northeastern Oklahoma town that we grew up in, and the only what we could get was from south of the border, like brickweed or brick flower.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But
that good old brick.
So it's just like a myth now at this point. People don't actually believe that was something that we had to deal with, but that was it, and there was no selection, there was no 20 jars on the shelf to choose from. So we started planting seeds that we collected over the winter from that in the spring, and trying to have a little bit of our own, and it kind of progressed from there. And once I got a little older, and started to make more of a personal connection to the plant, it's kind of evolved, and the reasons for gardening evolved. But the beginning, it was we had to grow our own because there was no option.
Literally.
So that's that was a great start. And we kind of mentioned before we got on, that was not really growing so much as planting and harvesting. That whole middle part of growing was eliminated. the way we did it, we would just take hundreds and hundreds of seeds and go out and plant them. We do like a 3 or 4 night float trip down the river and camp, and during the day we just go up creek bottoms and farmers fields and all these sloughs and backwaters and plant a bunch, and then come back, do the same thing at the end of the season, and in October do a little camp trip and try to remember where we had planted this. And it's like, oh, that tree looks familiar, let's go back up this creek and see, it was probably like 1 out of 20 or 30 plants would actually make it to harvest. The animals, we had the wild hogs were getting bad about the time I moved away from Oklahoma, but they would just root up the plant and eat the roots and leave the plant dead on the ground. And people finding it, and that was in the era.
It's a lot of different things you had to worry about, pretty much.
Oh yeah, and that was fully in the era of DEA helicopters. So that was a consideration, growing and harvesting, having to do that deal. So we definitely grew in the gray zone there for a while. But so like I said, we just go back at the end of the year, and hopefully some of the plants made it, and we would have our little stash for a few months over winter until we inevitably smoked it all and had to go back to the brick.
Yeah, that good old brick. The good thing about the brick, man, is that it's always there, but you never really want it to be there, but it's somehow always there, like
It was always there. Yeah.
it's always there, man. But like I said, guys, it's going to be a live Q&A, so drop your questions down, and I got some pretty interesting questions coming in already. I can't wait to get into some of those ones. And before I actually do, I wanted to touch on some of the old school stuff. We were just talking about like the olden days when the helicopters were swirling, and how great it is to be able to do some of the stuff we can now. But looking back, the good old bear can tech, man. I seen this on your IG. This was your Happy Mother's Day post a while back, and I was like, man, this bear tech, I haven't seen this in quite some friggin' time, man.
Yeah, no, that's a timeless classic. And now I just someone sent me a link to an Etsy. Someone's actually making can pipes, but ceramic, and they're like really, really nice. And I want one so bad. It's so trashy, but that's another thing. The hot butter knives and the old Coke cans is something that people don't have to deal with. Thankfully, that's definitely not good for your health at all.
It's really not, man. It's super bad. It's probably one of the worst things you can do when you really think about it, right? But like you just wanted that smoke. You just need to get it, man. But
Yeah, well, and it was taboo. It's like you couldn't be seen going into a store shopping for a pipe or a tobacco pipe, and back in that part of the country in that era. But it was very taboo.
literally,
So.
like Norma G says, the taste of aluminum, however you guys say it, aluminum. It was really not good. All your flour tasted like that, man.
No, it was you had to get Dr. Pepper cans because that sweet Dr. Pepper smoke that helped improve the brick smoke. People were like can connoisseurs.
Like
Yeah, like can connoisseurs. Like, I'm not smoking out of Mountain Dew can. It makes it taste all funny. It was like, I have that Dr. Pepper pipe.
Yeah, it definitely does, dude. Oh man, I can't wait to actually touch on some of the other stuff, man. And what I got up on screen right now is actually the Autoflower Cup 2021, man. So congratulations to you on that, dude. What an achievement. Like, tell us a little bit about that, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was kind of a serendipitous the way that it lined up with the timing, and I had an autoflower finishing, a few weeks, not quite a month before deadline for sample entries, and I wanted to, more than anything, I kind of saw the potential in the future of the autoflowers and wanted to be involved in that community. And
Yeah.
we were still relatively new to the Pacific Northwest at that point, so I thought it'd just be, more than anything, a good way to meet people and find my tribe up here, and which I certainly did. I made some great friends there at that event. But it was the first autoflower I had grown since Lowrider,
Wow.
and it was a freebie with a pack of photo period seeds that I had ordered, and yeah, it just turned out it was a beautiful plant and finished under 315-watt ceramic metal halide. And
Okay.
it
Nice.
turned out really nice, and I had just enough time to get it dried and trimmed and submitted in, and wasn't really expecting. It was the first cup that I had ever entered as well. So I didn't really have huge
Wow, man.
expectations of a win. I
Yeah.
was, like I said, I was going to meet people and have a good weekend, and yeah, it worked out. I was up against some really talented growers and phenomenal world-class breeders there, and was fortunate enough to have my flower chosen, and it was really, really a great experience.
Hell yeah, man. Well, congratulations to you on that, man. Guys, smash a like for that, because like I keep saying, autos are doing some great things. Like a lot of people do sort of like, think about autos as something that, I either got to grow the autos or the photos, like we were saying, or they just, talk trash talk the autos, but
Hmm.
autos really have a place in a lot of growers, cabinet. Like you said, it's a tool in your belt, so you got to like use it properly. And if you're growing photos, toss some autos in your bedroom, man. And the great thing I think that you were able to do is show a lot of people out there that you are able to grow fire flower even though it's an autoflower. A lot of
Hmm.
people say photos are better than autos, they're more superior, but you're recognized for your efforts for growing that auto. So tell us a little bit about the actual plant itself, dude. Like, what strain was it? Like, how long did it run? Like, how did it grow? What was the flavor profile like? Just tell us a little bit about it, man.
Yeah, I did it. It was in a 20-gallon
20
bag,
gallon?
organic soil,
Wow,
and
man.
I had just harvested out of the bag and threw the seed in there and very lightly amended. I had
Fuck me
some
hell.
Bio Live, down to earth, top
Dope.
dress, very, a few teas, but basically they're super light feeders, and that's what I've learned is with them is less is more for sure with the autoflowers. For your first time, people tend
Well
to
said.
love them to death that first 3 weeks, which are
Well said.
too hypercritical for an autoflower. There's no recovery time for overwatering once, and I had it, like I said, in a big bag and pretty hands off. Um, I had just seen, like I said, seen a photo period that I just had seen a few different growers posting pictures of. It was beautiful, so I ordered
Yeah.
that pack and got it was a special reserve cookies. Number 3 was the autoflower, and it was kind of a cookies, like it was a sweet cookie dough,
Got you.
sweeter candy uh,
Nice.
nose to it, and it smoked really really well. And I really do take pride in my drying. I think that's what a lot of people have issues with, is I see
So true.
tons of gorgeous rooms and gorgeous flowers at harvest, and then the end result is just lacking, even if it's not harsh. A lot of the terpene profile is missing final
Yeah.
product. So I think that's, like I said, I definitely take pride in my drying and curing process. I think that kind of maybe gave me the edge over uh,
Fucking
to win. I think
fantastic.
I put it into like I said, it was my first autoflower, so obviously it wasn't my familiarity growing autoflowers that gave me an edge up. It was kind of like that. The drying process, I feel like it kind of pushed me over the top for the win. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, and definitely, it was a nice, it was a big. I think had 6 ounces of flower from that plant. It was quite large for an autoflower that I didn't do any training, and I tend to shy away from any kind of training. I generally just let my autoflowers grow,
I love that, man.
feral.
You're just music to my ears, man. Keep on talking.
And not that, and not to say don't do that. I see
Yeah.
people that top and low stress, train their autos with great success, but
Got you.
I like to let mine go. I
Yeah.
just, I like the feral autoflower, and end up trimming a lot of low branches and try to get those big single or singular fat flowers up the top. And
Yeah. That
but yeah,
makes a lot of
it
sense,
was.
dude. Because like I actually dropped a video recently talking about that very thing. Because like homie came over recently and he was doing some stuff in the grow room with me, and he was like, "Man, let me smell some of that flower you got." And it's not like fully cured or anything, but it smells so good. And I told him like I just do a long, slow dry. I leave all the plant matter on there. I'm in Colorado, so it's super dry. Even though it was
Oh yeah.
summer, it was a little bit warmer and it was a little bit more humid, but I still left everything on there, man. Didn't take anything off. But the biggest part is that dry and cure. That's where you can like make or break your entire grow. You can have these beautiful flowers, during flowering stage, and all of a sudden your shit's all messed up because you didn't dry properly. You dried it too fast, or you just didn't dry it in the right way, or didn't cure it in the right way, and all of a sudden your shit's messed up. So just break down, what sort of dry and cure periods do you go for really?
So I shoot from like 21 days hang dry, and
Wow, I love that.
is like, and also I'll like water. Typically, like in a big bed, it doesn't matter so much, but in containers, I'll do like a heavy watering the day before
Yeah.
harvest. So a lot of people will do the opposite. You dry your plants back 3 or 4 days before harvest but I feel like it extends the dry time just an extra few days by having that plant,
Yeah.
at its capacity of water,
Yeah.
water capacity. So extend the dry time and my drying time. So first, like darkness is a big thing that a lot of people think that if you're going to take shortcuts with your drying, don't take it on the darkness, especially the first 72 hours of as dark as you can possibly keep the plants in is critical to a successful drying period, I think.
Dark
uh
AF.
the other, yeah, 100%. And the other thing I do is shoot for 60 degrees and 60% relative humidity, very low amount of air exchange, air movement. Like I don't like to have plants swaying in the breeze. You don't want stagnant sitting air, but you don't want to have fans blowing directly. I see that a lot of times people
Yeah,
in the first 72
literally.
hours like blasting and
Blast all the
brittle.
terps
So
off that shit.
so yeah, so that's so dark 60 60 And then so I just like it's a whole plant or as big of plant pieces as I can get away with if I can't do whole plants. And I'll
I got
remove
you.
some of the bigger fans the day before. But like you say, I like to leave a lot of plant material on the plant while I'm hanging it
Yeah.
and shoot for that, like 14-day minimum, 14-day drying period. So, but when I say 21, even to 28, so this last harvest I had, I dried down in a room in my basement, which stays pretty well. It's easy to control the climate down there. So I hung
Yeah.
it, for if you're in 60-60, if you have a proper environment while you're drying, you can transition seamlessly from drying to curing while it's still hanging on the plant. And that's what I like to do. So 60 to 60, theoretically, you could leave it hanging there indefinitely. You would
Yeah.
never have to take it off and jar it up. That's like a great environment to leave the plant in.
Yeah.
So I like to
So
do that,
true.
between 14 and 21 days. Technically, it's dry, but I'll leave it, even let it hang for another 7 or 10 days and take it out to like 21 to 28 days, whole plant
Yeah.
hanging, and then break it up and branch it out into totes and let that set for another 7 days to really try to stabilize. So once I go into a jar or whatever vessel I'm going to be using, I really don't need to burp. Like once it
Yeah.
goes into
Yeah.
a storage vessel, it's getting sealed. I'll
Yeah.
open it maybe a week or a week and a half later just to make sure everything is. But if the plant is stable before it goes into that container, you're not going to need to burp.
Yeah. And that is
Open
so
jars
true.
2 or 3 times a day. So
Yeah.
I
I agree.
figured that's kind of my workaround on the burping is to just let it hang another 7 to 10 days and then transition into like from hanging to a tote to storage vessel. And
Yeah.
that way I get really good.
Nice.
I get really good. Retain a lot of the terpene profile. I still have very, very aromatic flowers.
Yeah.
And I hear that a lot of time too, and I don't know how that misconception became or it is, but people, you're people think you can't smoke your flower at the end of dry. You got to cure it for X amount of days. It's like, well, no, like when my flower's dry, it's great. It's good. It's smoke. It should be when your flower's dry, you should be able to consume it enjoyably. You can't rescue it at that point. I think you failed at drying process. If your goal is to dry it for 10 days and it smells like hay and it's all crispy, but you're going to throw it into a jar with a Bavita pack for 2 weeks and it's going to smell great again. I mean, it's kind of the ship has sailed on the terpenes on that one. You got to really do it
Yeah.
right that first 2 weeks of the drying process to keep the nose intact. And then if you're not able to consume the flower at the end of the drying process, I think you need to revisit that drying process. What's going on? What can you change to make it better? Because 2 weeks in, I can take a flower off of any branch. It's golden. Curing
Yeah.
is going to make it better, not
Yeah. Facts.
save it. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's not
It's
going to
not
take
the
it from.
rescue
Yeah,
formula. It doesn't
yeah,
bring
yeah.
back any terps that are now gone.
No, 100%. Yeah. So a lot of people think that they can, dry it super fast and then cure it and it's going to be fine. It's like,
Nah.
no, it's not. No.
Yeah, that's a great tip, man. So pro tip there, guys, definitely pay a lot of attention to your dry process, man. So smash a like for that because Heston is out here dropping a lot of great info, and that's literally pretty much what I said in my video, dude. So you want to aim for that longer dry, and once the terps are gone, you can't get it back. So no amount of curing will bring that back. Like no amount of Bovita packs with fancy terpene infusion shits are going to bring that back. It's gone, man. So definitely pay a lot of attention to that. I'm seeing a lot of comments coming in right now in the chat. We got over 200 people already in the live stream, guys. So we got to get over 200 likes. If you ain't have 200 likes, that means people ain't hitting the like button, man. What's going on? And also, I want to find out what you guys are smoking. So drop it in the chat. Let me know what you guys are smoking, what you guys are growing. And as I said, it's a live Q&A. So if you guys got any questions, drop it in. But I got my homie H, he dropped a great question. I'm gonna just call him H. He said, here's my question. And Heston, maybe you can take this one before we actually get into the actual organic things. I think this might be a great segue. So here's his question. What do you like from my top dressing in a living soil at the 4th or 5th week? Worm castings, blood meal, kelp meal, bone meal, or all together? What sort of things do you like to use?
You definitely stay away from the blood meal.
Okay.
This late in the flower, that's going to take a few days to be available. And that you don't want to be given a hot nitrogen top dress that late in the flower, unless you're like
Got
plants
you.
are very yellow and super hungry. If you've done a soil test and you know that you're nitrogen deficient at this point, with the only reason I would think about incorporating any blood meal into that top dress. So worm castings always, kelp meal lightly, bone
Yeah.
meal 100%. Bone meal is a
Gotcha.
great one. It's going to take, a couple of weeks to become available as well. Make sure anytime you're doing a top dressing with that worm casting and bone meal,
Yeah.
combine the worm castings and bone meal. I always advise anytime you're going to do any kind of top dressing with a dry amendment, combine it equal parts with worm castings,
Okay.
because the biology present in the worm castings is going to be necessary to make that calcium bioavailable to the plant. So it's got to be worked on by the microbiology. So that's a good way to make sure that it's exposed directly to those microbes, and then take that mixture and scratch it into the surface of the soil, so it's not just sitting up on top, and then
Yeah.
water that in. So that's going
Got
to
you.
be your fastest way to make sure that's delivered. So, but that's a great timing for week 4 or 5. It's going to take 2 weeks and give you a nice calcium bump that last 2 weeks of ripening. So that's a
Awesome.
great timing for that one. But yeah, definitely go light on the kelp meal. It's good, lots of trace elements, but it's got some phytohormones that you want to be weary of applying in too high of concentration this time in flower. Might
Yeah.
cause you to have some airy
Facts.
flowers, some stretching
Don't
out
want
there.
that.
It's no, but for a very light kelp meal will be fine.
Yeah, I got you, man. And we were always here dropping some of these gems, man. And Heston has got such great information, such great knowledge. He's got over 50,000 followers on Instagram, guys. Definitely check him out. Show some love, man. And like I was saying, this is another great question which actually came in, and it's about drying. So shout out to Rules Goofy Going. He says his dry time is about 10 days, and he needs to work on his drying process, specifically his drying area. And that ties in nicely into Chris Bain's question. So shout out to Chris Bain. Much love. Thank you for that donation, man. And I see your question, brother, and I gotta get that answered for you, my man. So he says his drying area is at 70% RH. Is there any way to get it down? He can't afford a dehumidifier right now. And for me, what I've known is that what I figured out was back when I was living in the Caribbean is that my RH was pretty much around that same RH. It was pretty high, and I found a workaround by using an AC unit. So if you got an AC unit, maybe that can bring the RH down, but that also brings the temps down a little bit. So sometimes you got to be careful. But what would you say, Heston? How can one bring their RH down in their drying area? Because that's pretty key. Like if your RH is out of whack, then you can't achieve the ideal dry times, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. The humidity a bit higher isn't as bad as a bit lower. Like if it was down in the
Yeah.
40s or 50s, you'd really want to struggle to get that up a little bit. Depending on how big the area, if you're in a tent or something fairly easy to control,
Yeah.
if it's in a big basement, they have these. They look like a little bucket. It's called damp red. You get them at like Ace Hardware, Home Depot, any box store like that.
Yeah.
But it's to like leave in your basement, and it's basically like a powder that just absorbs moisture through the air. There you go. So
Yeah.
you take one of those and just throw like a pillowcase over the top of it. So some of them are scented. If it's
Wow.
just a plain one, you won't have any issue with it. But you can set that, you know, inside the tent with a sheet, a pillowcase or something over it. So if it's a scented one,
Yeah.
but that could be, a short-term solution. Those things are going to last about a week, but it'll help you drop that humidity down a little bit.
Got
And
you.
it's
That's a
outside of
great
like a
tip.
mechanical, and they're cheap enough. Like if you're in a position where, a dehumidifier is out of the budget,
Yeah.
adding an extra fan won't necessarily drop the humidity. It's
No.
just going to increase the airflow. So
Yeah.
if you go buy, 50-pound bag of rice from Costco and cut the
True.
top open in your tent, and that's going to drop your humidity. How many points I can't say how well it'll work depending on how sealed up it is, but there's a few, rice or one of those damp reds, something in the
Yeah.
tent to help suck the water out of the air a little bit.
Those are some great tips, man. Solid, solid suggestions, dude. So shout out to you, man. And I hope that helps my homie Chris. Much love to Chris. And thanks again for showing love and dropping that question. Guys, like I said, if you guys got any questions, drop them in. We're going to get them answered. But Heston, man, before we actually get into some more organic stuff, because we've barely even scratched the surface yet, we got a lot of stuff to actually, sort of get into. Talk to us about IPM, man, because IPM is super important, man. And if
Oh
your
yeah.
crop goes to shit through pests, bugs, mold, whatever it may be, you'll end up like this and have to burn everything, man. This is a heartfelt picture. So tell us a little bit about IPM and what's going on in this picture, man.
Yeah, well, so that's actually not due to any sort of pest issue. That was from a few years ago. Like I mentioned, we had moved to Oregon to grow in the OLCC market. Where there's some issues with the licensing. They did a moratorium on new light. There's like a 2-year period of just chaos in the rec market here for licensing.
Yeah.
We ended up taking a hemp seed production contract from a company in Southern Oregon, and that's what you
Okay.
see here is some hemp from that year that we kind of got left hanging. This company was going to come and pollinate. We took 1,000 cuttings at the beginning of the year, grew these big plants. They were going to come and pollinate them. They were going to come and harvest and cut us a check for the seeds. Basically, the company that we had the agreement with got bought by a bigger company in Arizona, and we kind of got left hanging. So we had just hundreds and hundreds of pounds of hemp top flower that we were going to try to sell, and they failed testing because it was 0.03% too much THC in our hemp.
Wow, dude.
So I had like a storage unit full of 27-gallon totes full of this hemp top flower that I smoked a bunch of it and gave away, and that was a cool picture, a photo op with burning some hemp. But I used it to smoke salmon and stuff, just like there's so much of it. But it was cathartic burning it. It was hard to get rid of. We had a great hard fought season and grew some beautiful plants and kind of got screwed over on a deal and ended up with a bunch of unsellable flower because of the regular or the rules on the THC testing. But I was very proud otherwise besides not making any money, we did pretty good. So it's like
no,
by every other metric
though, right?
that a business,
you still got that sense of fulfillment. At least there's a silver lining. That's what we got to say.
Well, we had this beautiful property we bought, and it had just like fallow land that had been abandoned, and we got it like put some blood, sweat, and tears, and had a really successful crop. And at that time, we thought we were still going to get our license, so we were just looking at it like a dry run for THC flower for the next season. So we're happy the way all the infrastructure was great. We had a 1/4-acre pond stocked with smallmouth bass that I was using as like irrigation. So I had like aquaponics incorporated into the no-till field, and we had this beautiful harvest, nice plants, and then I was in the top 5% for crop loss prevention in the state of Oregon that year in the hemp program. So it means we lost less than 95%. 95% of the farmers lost more than we did to mold, mildew, and pest pressure.
Hell, bro.
So that was like the year. It was like the CBD craze year. Everybody started growing CBD that year. I think it was 2020. And it was kind of the THC market was the THC market was kind of crashing, and everybody thought that the CBD was going to be like the great savior. So we were growing seeds, and if it would have worked out, we would have made a pretty sweet little paycheck at the end of the season. But the way it was, we kind of broke even and ended up having to sell the land. But it was my brother-in-law basically was the only other labor that we had. So I was basically by myself taking care of 1,000 plants or so, with him helping every once in a while.
Yeah.
And there were so many new growers that had been growing alfalfa or whatever they had in their fields, and decided like, we'll just run hemp this year. And it was like pretty tragic, because there was a couple of people ended up taking their lives because the season went so poorly, and they grew like hundreds of acres of hemp for oil extraction, and then he went back and baled it, and like he would his alfalfa grass, baled it wet and injected it with nitrogen gas to so it wouldn't rot, and it didn't work with the hemp. So he had like 300 acres of baled, rotten, useless hemp, and he lost his farm and house and everything. He ended up taking his life. So it was a very big year for IPM, and we did very well. And I always start say that it's very it starts before you plant. You need to understand what you're going to be facing in your environment, like what pest pressure is typical in your region, what are your neighbors growing that may influence pest pressure on your crop. Are they organics? Are they spraying glyphosate? What ground dwelling rodents are there going to be? If you're in a big field, how are you going to minimize? You're going to have bird houses and predator posts for predator birds to come in.
Yeah.
Beetle mounds, planting rows of flowers and native wildlife around your cash crop to bring in the beneficial and predatory insects.
Yeah.
So I take an approach that may seem overkill to a lot of people that think that you're just going to like buy one spray and that's going to be like your IPM. You're going to go out and spray your field once a week and that's going to be it. And it's really more of a, IPM stands for integrated pest management. So integration assumes more than one thing needs to be brought together to integrate. So you have exactly right, multiple approaches. You don't want to, no matter how good one product may be at its job, you have to have redundancies, in place to ensure that all of the success isn't riding on one instrument, one chemical that you're using, one program that you've got in place. So redundancy, multiple approaches to alleviate pest pressure. And the biggest thing I think people are starting to kind of come around to is like prevention is so much easier than dealing with an issue. Yeah. So it's like keeping a healthy crop and keeping a healthy crop canopy, being out in your canopy, monitoring what's going on. Even if your canopy is one plant in a tent in your room, like if you're only in there once a week, like that's a week long is a big window for potential issues to develop. So the more hands-on you have with each plant, and I think that kind of it can be tied into some of the larger commercial canopies and like usually they don't have the interaction with people, and some of these farms are producing plants that have never seen or touched a human, so totally hands-off growing approach, and it's all automated and sprayed by big machinery, and having that personal connection I think is beyond measurement. Just the the metaphysical, spiritual energy connection, gardening, and that I feel with plants that maybe cannot be quantified or measured is huge, as well as that eyes on your plant. You're out there putting hands on your plant. You're going to be able to see problems before they become detrimental to the entire crop. You catch that stuff early and get on it and stay ahead of it is so much easier.
Absolutely, man. And like Meat Chamber Music says, prevention and preparation is the first line of defense. It's definitely better than having to fix anything and deal with any infestations. And what John Doe says as well, I really like that. Organic all the way. It's a way of life. It's a lifestyle. So everyone knows what organic growing is, and everyone is pretty much trying to grow organic nowadays, just because there's a lot of concern about, using sustainable materials, what am I putting into my body and all that sort of stuff, and we can talk about that for hours. But before we actually, sort of get into, that full talk, I want to just pick your brain a little bit, because there are a lot of different styles of organic growing. And when you really scratch the surface, it's more than just growing organic. Like you can get into like Jadam, KNF, and all that sort of stuff. So tell us a little bit about, what's your style of organic growing? Like what do you incorporate and what would you consider? Would it be KNF? Would it be, Jadam? Like what sort of growing would it be?
Yeah. So that's another good topic to get into. Is I love the preparations and the whole process of being able to make your own inputs is very rewarding as well. So I a blend. Like I don't I'm not committed to one particular philosophy or practice. I like to take what I believe works best in my situation, what I value, basically the process. And like I said, so just in organics itself, there's so much like infighting amongst organic growers too. And now the heavy metal conversation, we're having to have the heavy metal conversation, and it's I think that it's like the natural progression of a grower. Like if you're not growing strictly for profit, if you're like in a commercial setting and you're like numbers, if that's all that matters, this doesn't apply to you. This is I think for someone who loves the plant, loves to grow. However you start, I started I Miracle Grow back in the day. I've used Botanicare, Emerald Harvest, some of the Dutch stuff, every nutrient under the sun. And I think it's a natural evolution, a progression for people who truly love the plant are going to end up organic at minimum, and like no-till modern natural farming I think that's just kind of like the evolution of man,
Yeah.
being able to control your own inputs, being able to prepare that for your plant, creating soil that's like a nurturing environment for plants to thrive in.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what won me over to the organic methodologies, is like all of the nutrients, all the bottle nutrients, like you're on a schedule, you're progressing through
Literally.
this feeding schedule. So you're dictating what the plant eat, when it's going to eat, what it's going to eat, how much of all of these micro and macro nutrients it's getting at these specific times. And it's like, I think it's just very uh you know egotistical. It's very typical of man to assume that we know better than nature. Like, we're going to come in, we're going to go to the lab, we're going to come out with something that's better than what nature
Literally,
has
right?
spent millions of dollars or millions of years doing on its own.
Perfecting. Yeah. I agree.
So it's
That's
like,
so true.
I just like, if you take living soil like as a base, living soil, so you create this environment that's self-contained ecosystem that's cycling these nutrients, and it's able to communicate with the plant and provide what the plant needs when it needs it, based on exudates and chemical changes in the soil. So
Yeah.
the plant's back in control. So you add nutrients to the soil, it's not on a schedule. The plant is going to consume what it needs when it needs it in that situation.
Yeah.
And being able to just have that environment, basically self-sustaining, and the plant's able to really express itself naturally to the maximum of its
Full
potential.
potential. Yeah.
It's going to do what's want, and I could get a few more points. THC bottle feeding, sure. Is it better? I don't know. I don't think that better and best is so subjective. Like, a few extra
So true.
THC points isn't better to me. Like, on paper, sure, it looks like better for the investors or whatever, but it's like, the plant being itself and expressing itself how it wants to is best for me. That's what I
Yeah.
consider best, is like hands off, having this environment, and the plant like finishes beautifully, and that's what it wanted to do with its genetic expressions. That's perfection for me, even if it's not what commercially viable, I guess it's not super rock hard, 39% THC. It's not. No, it's not. But that's not what I need. That's not what I want.
Yeah.
And and then, yeah. So, and then in the bags. So if I'm in a large enough container to do the living soil and
So
soil
what would
tests in
be like
between
a large
harvests,
enough
and
container then, like to run a living soil setup? Because a lot of people tuned in right now are probably growing indoors. I know we have lots of outdoor growers as well, but if you're growing in like a pot, like what would be an ideal size for, like, to get a living soil setup running to actually
all right.
work? That is.
So picture in a 30-gallon fabric container.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. I think it's a 28-inch diameter, maybe.
Got you.
About the same thing. 2 feet by 2 feet, pretty good size.
Yeah.
Amount of soil. So in a 30-gallon container, the amount of living soil that is in that container is about the size, a little bit smaller than a basketball, and that's just the
Got
area
you.
immediately inside the main root ball. So like in the center of the rhizosphere, basically right under the stalk and right
Yeah.
under the main root ball. The dry back on the side walls around the container of the plant, the constant dry back, getting moist dry back, so that biology that's in that zone is dormant and dying
Constantly.
constantly. So the only
Yeah.
living soil region really is that small area. So
Got
you
you.
can get away with it if you're like very meticulous about soil moisture consistency in a smaller container. Like, you got
Yeah.
some blue mats, and you got like maybe your fabric bag is wrapped in cellophane. I see that a
Yeah.
lot to help retain moisture. You can do it in a 20-gallon bag, but if you're just like hand watering every 2 or 3 days, it's difficult to have a true living soil. You're going to be
Got you.
constantly having to add, uh, you know,
Stuff.
microbial to keep the biology
Yeah.
to a population where that nutrient cycle is functioning properly. Otherwise, you're gonna have pH issues and nutrient deficiencies, because the dormancy and dieback of the microbiology in that sphere. So you can do it in smaller containers, but if you're just like in a 4x4 tent, and you have the option to do like 4 10-gallon bags, or one big, but do like one container as large as you can, And you
Yeah.
can put multiple plants in it. People get hung up about
True.
roots fighting with each other for space, and that's not realistic. If you get 30-gallon bag, you could put 4 plants in there, and they'll be healthy and they'll be fine.
Yeah, some
So
fantastic roots. And what I've also noticed is that a lot of people do that. Like they got a full 4x4 tent and they just put a whole, like, for instance, grassroots fabric pots, right? They got
mhm.
some bang fabric pots and you can put a whole 4x4 bed in your 4x4 tent, pretty much, and fill that whole bitch with soil and you can have an entire setup. And I've seen people literally run autos in there and they chop the autos and plant the next one right next to it, so you can sort of do that no-till sort of thing, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
I
that's
think
why
that's a
if
great
you
one.
want to explore that, if you're going to explore that style of growing, I always advise you get as big of a container.
Yeah.
Fewer bigger containers are better than more smaller containers in a living soil situation.
Yeah,
Like if
a
you're
big,
growing
nice
running
container.
synthetic nutrients and feeding every day, then it's not going to really matter. You can get away with a 1-gallon bag and still get a decent harvest off of that, but it really comes into play with the living soil organics, the container size.
Yeah, I got you, man. That makes a lot of sense, man. Guys, smash the like for that because Heston's dropping tons of great info, man. This is how FloroFarms gets their flower to look so fucking amazing, man. So definitely check them out on Instagram as well. And yeah, man, I got another question, dude. When it comes to your inputs, because like everyone is growing organically, and the first thing they get hung up on is inputs. So like, what sort of inputs should I use? There's so many different options. Like, how do I know what to get? And it can get expensive, getting all these inputs. So for someone just starting off, like what are a few key inputs that you use or you would suggest for someone, for their growth?
Yeah, I'd say if you're growing organically and you don't have any gypsum in your supply closet, I'd say gypsum.
Gypsum.
Calcium is one of the most
Some.
underrated elements, and it's not on the MPK label, so people tend to overlook it. We get real hung up on the MPK label, but
Yeah.
calcium is incredibly important. Seabird guano, some high phosphorus seabird guano is great as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the calcium, phosphorus, Epsom salt. So as much as I hate, the CalMag jokes and the CalMag diagnose, everybody wants to any kind of
More
problem.
CalMag.
But it's so critical. It's so critical.
More
I hate
CalMag.
I hate that they're right most of the time. It's so frustrating. But yeah, Epsom salt. So like magnesium, great. You want magnesium and calcium, phosphorus
Yeah.
are incredibly important. So if you're just going to get a box or two, Down to Earth has a few products that are great, like
Oh yeah.
utilitarian, top dress, the BioLive. Man, it's got so much beneficial biology as well as a good nutrient profile. So like
Yeah.
a box of BioLive and some gypsum goes a long way.
Yeah.
Uh, for very very minimalist approach, and you saw that was so that you're showing the kind of the stuff I had gathered for living soil batches. It does, and that's so I
And that was
it
for a
does get
four
it
by
does
four
get
rollout,
pricey.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it gets pricey up front. So and that's the kind of the thing with living soils. That everything's up front. All of the labor, all of the effort is up front. It's all front loaded. The price is all going to be up front. You're not buying new nutrients every few
Yeah.
weeks at the store. It's you buy it all initially. And the thing about that is like this is going to be good for I'll be able to mix a few more beds. It's not just for one bed. You got to buy all this stuff individually, but it's in a dry dry powder or prill form, and it lasts forever.
Yeah.
So a 5-pound box lasts a pretty good while.
Yeah. And one thing I would say, man, is like, there are a lot of different ways that you guys can set up your beds. Because if you guys can see just on screen now, we got tons of smaller pots, but then you also got like, a massive bed next to it. And if you look at the size, it's not really that much difference in terms of like square footage on the floor, like, the square footage that it actually takes up. So you can actually get a living soil system set up really easily, really nicely. And like you said, a lot of the cost will be up front. But once that cost is done up front, there's very little that you have to do afterwards. You don't have to be going back to the shop and buying nutrients. And a lot of these companies nowadays have like a lot of water down nutrients and stuff like that, where where they make you come back and they got like 57 part bottles and all sorts of stuff you got to buy. So, those costs can add up is what I'm trying to say. And then it's also not that great to have, a bunch of plastic being shipped back and forth and disposed of, within the environment either. So there are a lot of different things when it comes to that. And shout out to Mrs. K's Garden. She's always in here showing love, dropping some great questions. And like I said, guys, it's a live Q&A. Get your questions in. We're about to just see what else is going on. Mrs. K says, how much gypsum should I add? How much gypsum would
it depends on if you're like doing a soil mix. If you're doing, you can water. It's great to water in. If you get like Diamond 97 solution grade gypsum, it's very water soluble. It mixes right in and it actually penetrates into the soil volume, so it's not going to just be a top dress. So I do solution grade gypsum at 3 grams per gallon for watering in for a soil drench.
Got you.
You can do it'll be, if you're doing like a mix. I think I do 6 cups per 27 gallons, 30 gallons of soil. Mixing it initially. So it depends. 3 grams a gallon for solution grade water soil drench is key. You can do that up until day of harvest, and I recommend doing it up until day of harvest.
Got you. Nice, man. Well, let's shout out to you because that's a question that Mrs. K had, and it's always great to get those questions answered, man. And one thing that I did also want to touch on is that you can't like scroll through your IG and not notice some of the great teas and mixtures that you be brewing, man. You look like the mad scientist, everything organic. And I love some of the things that you be brewing and mixing, like some of the fresh fruit ferments and some of the fresh plant extract juices, FPJs, FFJs, and there are just so many different things, man. So tell us a little bit about some of the things that you are brewing and how you actually would go about it. Because like there are a lot of different things that you're brewing, and I know that the compost teas are one thing. So maybe talk to us a little bit about some of the FPJs and FPEs and like WTF am I seeing on screen right now?
For sure. Yeah, no, the acronyms can get overwhelming, and there's definitely a lot of them. So and that's I touched on that about the infighting in organics is like I progressed from synthetics to organics and no-till, and then trying to modern natural farming I think is a nice blanket term that kind of incorporates all the different fermentation and putrefaction methods that are out there. So people like KNF, Korean natural farming, Master Cho basically put the thousands of years of practice to paper and made it in a format available for Westerners to have be able to read and translate it for us. Huge work. So Jadam was an offshoot of KNF. That was Master Cho's son, who was trying to avoid the sugar. So I like so KNF is not really it's fermentation, but it's like osmotic pressure. You're not doing a microbial fermentation or digestion. It's you're taking the insides and bringing them on the outside and then straining that out. Jadam is actual bacterial digestion and through putrefaction. So you take plant matter and some microbiology in water, and that the microbiology eats the plant matter and breaks it all down to its simplest chelated forms, and that's a plant available nutrient solution. Modern natural farming is kind of in the middle, where you use lactic acid bacillus to digest the plant material, but with also brown sugar. So it's the KNF method is pretty quick as far as producing a usable plant nutrient solution. Jadam takes months for the putrefaction process. You do it in bigger batches outside, and in the modern natural farming is kind of right in between. It's much quicker than putrefaction, still I think a few days longer than KNF. So I started real heavy into the KNF. I loved it. I loved it, like you said, the wizardry aspect of like brewing all these potions, and like you're hands on and you're out there in collecting the inputs, and then starting to try and close the loop as much as I can in my own production. I started looking at my inputs, and the biggest thing was brown sugar. So I'm not in a region that produces brown sugar locally, so I'm importing this from halfway across the world in a plastic package. So what am I what benefit is that versus Jadam? So where a Jadam, I can source everything right here in the yard.
Yeah.
The sugar source is potato,
Okay.
or any kind of like polysaccharide starches. But you use a potato, like a soft boiled potato. So the starch
Yeah.
of the potato replaces the sugar, the brown sugar, and I'm able to basically, potatoes are growing feral here in the yard year round. It doesn't really get cold enough long enough in the winter to keep them from growing. So I can produce the sugar here at the house. So I eliminate the brown sugar transported. I don't, he just uses water, the potatoes, and some leaf mold, basically just a handful of dirt from somewhere under a leaf pile or base of an old tree. And I'm able to produce all of that here at the house locally. So there's no, like, I'm not bringing anything outside. So that's kind of what started me towards Jadam methodologies primarily, but for a couple of things like uh, the FAA fish amino acids. Like I
Yeah.
live on the coast, so I have a great
Sweet. I
local
love that fish
source
stuff.
to go down to, the fishmonger, and I can fill up a bucket basically any day
Yeah.
of the week with their scraps.
Nice.
So I justify using sugar in that situation.
Yeah.
So I acknowledge the impact that is having, the carbon footprint, the plastic waste that's creating, but the amount that I'm able to produce is that's nitrogen fertilizer for years, basically off of a 5-gallon bucket.
Yeah.
So in perspective, it's a very minimal amount of waste and carbon footprint created in that situation. So, and I don't want to knock on anybody that's doing KNF, but
For sure.
again, if you're like going to the store and buying a bunch of bananas and a bunch of bags of sugar at the store to make these ferments, it's kind of defeating purpose. And it's like
Yeah.
that's like against the principles of KNF,
Of KNF, exactly.
and then
Yeah.
it's you're going to do a potato ferment, banana peel ferment for potassium. It's like, well, a cucumber has 40% more potassium than a banana does, and you can grow those at your house and not have to support the organized crime ring that is
Oh shit.
bananas. So it's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to bash anyone for doing KNF, because obviously you're making a conscious effort to try to be better, do better. You're not buying
Yeah.
plastic bottles. But it's like, so now to step back and look at your process and what you're doing and what ingredients you're sourcing. And like, there's always some sort of well, not always. If you're in city, obviously your limit or your options will be limited. But here, rural areas, even if you're not growing a garden, if you don't have a huge food production at your home, more than likely there's going to be a small farm local that you can go to and get some extras, some trash stuff that they're not going to sell. Go to your supermarket, see what days they throw out their old produce, and that's like, you're sure you're using a commercial produce, but it's
Yeah.
going to be waste. You're saving it from being waste at that point. So that's a healthier alternative to buying fresh bananas. But even if you are buying fresh bananas, that's better than supporting some of these larger chemical manufacturers. So it really is,
True.
it's nitpicky, and you can just like sit
Yeah.
and tear someone apart for anything,
Pretty much anything all day.
for anything. So if you're like, and it's like, over the last year, I've kind of really tried to come down off my high horse on that one as well. I used to get very confrontational, and like, people that weren't growing organic cannabis is like, and at the end of the day, it's like, I think that there's a better way, but as long as we're all getting to grow the plant at the end of the day, you know what I mean? So that's really a win. And
Yeah. That's the
however you're
win for
doing
a
it,
lot of
that's
us.
making you happy, whatever.
Yeah.
It's you're doing your thing. So good for you. But just like through actions and results, try to make that argument that way, instead of like, ah. People
I
are
like
much
that,
more
man. A
more
lot of times
receptive.
results speak, and a lot of people are interested in how other people do things and see if they can incorporate different styles into their own, their own setups and their own routines. And I think that that's a great way that a lot of people can learn. And it's all about learning from other people, learning and sharing. There may be some things you like, there may be some things you don't like. It's all about figuring out what works for you. And speaking about that, I'm always happy about this segment, which we're going to pivot into real quick before we actually close things off. And it's the Know Your Bud segment, because everyone that comes onto the show, I like to say is my bud. And I like to find out what you guys do with your buds. How do you grow it? How do you smoke it? Just tell me what's going on. So, yeah, man, there are a couple questions I'm going to ask him. I'm just going to throw out a few random options, almost like multiple choice back in the day, back in school days and shit. And you just let me know what's your preference and why. That's it, right?
All right.
All righty, man. Let's get it, man. Everyone, let's get into the Know Your Bud segment. We got Mr. FloroFarm, man. So first off, man, when it comes to germination, what's your preference? Straight into the soil, glass of water method, or paper towel method?
Straight to soil.
I like that, man. Say no, you're not wasting time, innit? Okay, next one, though, is organic or synthetic?
Organic.
It's got to be that, right?
Gotta be. I mean, if you break it out, I'll take a hit just to be polite. I'm not gonna turn your flower down.
Okay, this one though is I think I may know the answer, but I'm still gonna ask it, man. Photo or Autoflower?
Oh man, don't make me choose. Yeah, no. So photo, but no hate for autos. Like I said, they have their place. But if I got to choose one, it's trusty old photo. Period.
Yeah, the good old photo, man. I love him too, man. So I can't fault you on that one. But this one's a little bit controversial. Fems or regs?
Regs.
Regs, man. A lot of people say fems, man. I'm always stoked when people come on and they say regs. I'm like, yeah, my reg brother.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, this one is the super controversial one. And I think I said that quite a few times already. But dry trim or wet trim?
Dry trim.
Oh, yeah, it's got to be dry, man. People come on and say wet, and people are like, yo, dude, what the fuck? Why? What? And they go off in the chat.
Again, that's a situation. If you got 1,000 pounds of flower to trim, and that T4 trimmer works just fine. Literally. It is what it is at that point, but you gotta make it work. Got to get it trimmed somehow.
You got to get that trimmed somehow. I like that, man. Okay, next one, though, bong or joint. How do you like to enjoy your flower?
Ooh, joint, man. I'm a roller. I'm a roller.
Me too, man. I love it. Personally, I find you taste it a lot better too. Everything tastes the same in a bong to me, man. Anyway, I don't know, but edibles or vapes? Edibles or vapes? Edibles. Oh man, I think I'm with you on that one. But I do like a good old vape when you're in a situation, you go into the airport or something, or you need to be real discreet and you got a little vape. That works out real nice. Now, these are two new questions that I actually thought of pretty recently. So you're the first guest on the show that I'm asking these questions to. Right? So I'm pretty excited. Now, this one, when it comes to your munchies, dude, salty or sweet?
Oh man, dude, I'm such a sweet. I'm like a sugar addict when I get the munchies. It's gotta be chocolatey. It's gotta be so chocolatey.
Yeah, it has to be chocolate, bro. I love that. My wife eats a lot of like salty stuff, and I'm all about the chocolate. I can only have chocolate, and I'm good.
There was like this 6-month stretch where I was hitting the gym every day, working out like so hard. Yeah. And that was like, oh man, Zoolander or one of the Ben Stiller movies where he's electrocuting himself so he doesn't eat the donut. I mean, that was me. I was like, I just want to eat the sugar so bad.
Man, I love it, man. I had I crushed a bunch of chocolate last night. Let's not even get into it. Okay. Now, this one I think is a little bit interesting because I'm not sure how people are going to take this one. Like I said, you're the first person I'm asking this one to. So, wake and bake or nightcap? It's a tough ass one, bro.
Dang. I gotta go nightcap, man. I got the kids, gotta get the kids up and rounded up for school. So I'm like coffee in the morning and a nightcapper, I guess. Yeah.
I like that, man. I think I'm gonna probably be the same because if I'm being honest, like I gotta smoke before I go to sleep. Dude. I gotta blaze something up, like
Oh yeah, 100%.
You gotta do it.
If I'm not falling asleep with a pipe like this, I'm
I love that, man. Okay, now the last one, dude. This one is a little bit different. It's not really a multiple choice style one, but it's one about you, right? So you're sitting down right here, right now, and 20-year-old you walks through that door, right? Are you out smoking 20-year-old you? Like, are you smoking more than your 20-year-old self?
Ooh.
Who's smoking more, you or 20-year-old you? Young you or older you?
Dang. Probably me, because I'm smoking much better flower than 20 years ago me was. So I was like, I think I got my tolerance a little higher than that young Thundercat back then.
He was smoking tons of brickweed, man. Whatever he can get his hands on, pretty much. Now you can grow your own. You're spoiled for choice. Oh, fucking hell, man. I love that, man. Well, that was a great segment, man. Honestly, it's a really nice segment. I just love to have everyone on the show, and it helps everyone get to know you a little bit better. Heck, helps me to know you a little bit better, man. So thank you so much for that, dude.
For sure.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I think we touched on a lot of different things, man. From some great organic stuff. We barely even scratched the surface still. I feel like we can have you back for a whole nother episode, dude. But thanks a lot for taking the time to kick it with us. Before we actually close off, though, for everyone that wants to find out more about what you got growing and what you got going on, or maybe just reach out to you, hit you up and ask you a few questions about organic gardening, where can they do that, bro?
Yeah, so I appreciate that. FloroFarm.com is going to be up here this week or this next week, and I'm going to be starting an educational series and try to funnel a lot more information and interaction through the website, because
Dope.
we all know how Instagram. I mean, my account could be gone tomorrow, so I'm trying to get a kind of another avenue for people to contact with me. So really, check out FloroFarm.com. That's going to be probably my primary residence on the internet. So
got you. That's what's up, guys. So definitely check him out. He's on Instagram and he's doing some great stuff. And also just check out FloroFarm's website, man. They got some great stuff going on there as well. You don't want to miss out on that, man. And like I always say, it's always great when a guest is able to come on and get some of these great questions that you guys had in the chat answered. So shout out to you guys in the chat. Shout out to all the ICANN fam in the chat right now, the ICANN VIP Bean Club. Shout out to all you guys. We got a lot of great stuff for you guys. So if you aren't part of the fam, definitely join up. But Heston, thanks a lot for taking the time to come and kick it with us, man. Thanks a lot for coming on, breaking down some great things with organic gardening. The Know Your Bud segment was fire. And, just also that dry and cure segment. I think a lot of people overlook that. So thanks for breaking some of that stuff down, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you so much for having me on. Like I said, we're just scratching the surface. We could go on and on, but yeah, definitely. Anytime. And thank you so much for having me on. I enjoyed it.
Hell yeah, man. Well, that's what's up, guys. Like we said, growing in the vet, Victor Ramirez, my ICANN fam homie, he says we might have to do a part 2, and maybe one may be in the works. Maybe the next time we do it, it may be a live in-person one. Who knows, man? We'll see. You guys stay tuned. Definitely stay tuned and look out for that, man. But yeah, behalf of everyone who's tuned in right now, man, we got almost 300 people tuned in. And on behalf of everyone that watched afterward, dude, thank you so much for taking the time to come and hang out, man. We had a great time, and we really do appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely, man. Thank you everybody that tuned in. Appreciate it.
Hell yeah, man. So guys, smash that like. Let's see how many likes we can get. Drop any questions you have. We may try to answer it on the next episode. And most importantly, smash that like, hit that bell, and stay motherfucking high and stay motherfucking fly. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.
Finish him.